Well, that was an interesting experience. I just sat and thought I was recording myself, giving my third reflection, but in fact I had not pressed start, and so I talked to a camera that was not recording anything. A little frustrating, but at the same time, it's a lesson to be learned about letting things go. Um, just came back from a life-changing 10-day meditation, Vipassana meditation, and I've already seen, that there are a lot of videos on YouTube about people sharing their own experiences. I, for one, don't have a lot of patience for other people who are going on about how their own lives have changed. The only reason I would want to share at this point is just encourage other people. Because if people have struggled and suffered similar to how I have, and are looking for something that works, not a drug, not magic, but a technique that was the gift of the Buddha, a really scientific technique. I think it's an amazing experience if you're willing. It's a hard experience, and you have to be willing to take it really seriously. But it points to a larger picture. It's not what's emphasized is just the technique, but it's all connected to a larger religious dimension. And I was struggling with whether or not I should say something on online, because it's like I said, I don't have a lot of patience for other people's stuff, and I was going to write a longer piece for the more philosophically minded to try to explain more analytically, philosophically, how this technique works, and but again, on in oral form, it seemed a little self-indulgent. But I decided to kind of broach this topic anyway, thanks to a short story that my mother shared with me. She wrote it in Korean, and she wanted to get my opinion of it. And it was a beautiful little story, And as I said in my previous attempt, the first time around that didn't record, and my mother, sometimes I get very irritated with her. She does things that I feel are small and stupid, and repeats behaviors that I find really irritating. But she has a good heart, and it comes through very clearly in things like this, what the story relates. And not to ruin the story, again, I doubt we'll have the same audience since it's in Korean, and she expresses it obviously much more beautifully than I could in this short summary. But it's basically about how one time she went out to a restaurant or a place to buy Italian beefs for herself and my dad and me. And because I had made a couple other requests and she, was trying not to forget those, she accidentally, ordered 2 Italian beefs instead of 3. And she talks about how in this story that in the car, when she realized her mistake, she was struggling with how to explain it without ruining the meal for myself or my father, because she didn't want us to share our beefs or whatnot. And so she finally comes up with a reason. She said, "Oh, I had a big lunch, and I didn't feel like ordering it, so everyone could eat and be happy." Again, she expresses it much more beautifully than I could. But the point was, and which she didn't make obvious, which is part of the beauty of the story, that it was completely unselfish on her part. It was, and that's in her mind and in a lot of people's minds, characteristic of a mother, of a wife, even that unselfishness, and that really is the key to all kind of moral beauty. All the great religious systems, all the great moral systems have said the same thing, that unselfishness is. I'm getting distracted a little bit by the Mozart in the background. It's the 21st Piano Concerto, which I think is one of probably the most beautiful classical piece for me, at least. But anyway, I like to have music in the background. As I've said before, my own experience with YouTube videos are a little more entertaining, or I don't know, they keep my attention better with something happening in the background. But back to selflessness. All the great moral systems, like I was saying, and religious systems, say that selfishness is a bad thing. But what they don't give you is a way to be selfless. Right? And that was the great gift of the Buddha. He offers a technique for people to train their bodies, train their minds, and you can't really separate the two. Train ourselves on how not to react so animalistically, so selfishly, because that's how we're hardwired to be. And some of us are worse than others. In my experience, the smarter someone thinks he or she is, the worse off they are with respect to that selfishness. And they might fool themselves, convince themselves into thinking that they're better than others. But they're really deep down inside just miserable. And the Buddha offers a way out of this misery. A concrete, scientific way out, not a mystical, magical way. A concrete way where you have to train your body by concentrating and then realizing that all of these reactions to your sensations, the feelings of craving or aversion, the pleasure and pain that you experience, those reactions are a function of your animal reactions. When you look at our nervous impulses, they're just a bunch of electrical signals. And when you see how fleeting they are, the Pali term is anicca, the impermanence or change that is characteristic of reality. Once you learn that through meditation, you're able to reprogram your body so that you no longer react in such a animal way. Again, I'm distracted because we're coming up to the part that really moves me in this piece of music. And I'm a bit frustrated too because I feel like I expressed myself much better the first time around when I wasn't recording. Hopefully, this will still have its effect. One thing I remember saying the first time around that I neglected to mention thus far is that philosophers, I think, often have the toughest time getting rid of their egos. Oh, here's the part. Raise the volume temporarily. Alright, it's not about Mozart, but it is a beautiful piece of music. I was saying about philosophers, if you've ever been to a philosophy conference, you've never seen a group of bigger egos all in one place. Even say on an NBA basketball court. Basketball for me is a sport about ego, but even there, people have to temper their egos for the sake of the team once in a while, and not the case in a philosophy conference. So philosophers thinking that they're so smart, that they're all running around in these conferences trying to impress each other with how smart they are. That they have the toughest time letting go of their egos. I've never seen a philosopher, eager to serve people food or wash their dishes. And these are all the things that, that I don't know, that the masses of people have to do on a day-to-day level just to live. And what this meditation technique, what Vipassana meditation does, is not just theoretically, but in practice, teach us how to subsume that ego under a larger truth, under the truth, the Dhamma. It's not a mystical truth, like I said. It's really a profoundly experiential truth, that we're not better, that the ego is not anything real, in fact. I can talk on and on about this, and like I said, I'm going to try to write something, but it has to be experience. And my mother's Italian beef story made me think of this, because there is, that's where the most profound beauty, I think, in human experience can be found, where people are genuinely selfless. And it's so hard to do, especially for people like me with such ridiculously large egos. Anyway, like I said, I felt I did it better the first time, but it is what it is. Anicca, I gotta let it go. So I'll leave it at that. Bye.